All right. So tomorrow, Luna announces a hearing on transparency related to UAP, aka UFOs. A couple important things to note about this hearing. There are four witnesses in alphabetical order: Alejandro Wiggins, Senior Chief Operations Specialist for the USS Jackson Pacific Ocean, February 15th, 2023, witnessed a tic tac shaped object exiting the water. Interviewed by George Knapp. Jeffrey Nucatelli, former U.S. Air Force security officer, former U.S. Marshals, um, stationed at Vandenberg Air Force Base. October 14, 2003, he witnessed a giant red square object over launch facilities. Ryan Graves testified about this other witness at the first hearing, didn't name him. This is the guy, apparently. The red square object returned that night. Um, and also, what's important is Nucatelli didn't actually witness the red square UFO himself. He's just recounting the stories of other people who claim they did. In fact, he's the guy that rounded up everyone who witnessed this event for the, which is very interesting. He's like literally the guy who rounds up people who witness events or whistleblowers, potential whistleblowers. I'd be curious to ask him questions about what he did for U.S. Marshals Service, what kind of work he was involved when, if he had his relationship with Lou Elizondo is just about UFOs, or if it goes professionally or beyond that. I'd like to know more about Jeffrey Nucatelli's history with whistleblower operations. Has he ever arrested a whistleblower for U.S. Air Force security forces or U.S. Marshals? Have they ever carried out whistleblower sting operations? Because I really worry that a lot of these mainstream efforts, like George Knapp's Weaponized and Jeremy Corbell's UFO Revolution on TMZ, where they advertise about whistleblowers being encouraged to come forward and contact them with information. I believe that what really happens is that they run a whistleblower trap, and that people who go and contact them actually get arrested. They don't actually get to testify at hearings, and that the four people we have testifying are controlled witnesses, people that they know can tell a certain story. I don't know, man. I have really limited trust in my government right now after the whole Epstein files thing and what we're learning about 9/11. Well, what most people are learning about 9/11, what people who watch this channel for the last 15 years knew for a long time. But anyways, Dylan Borland, a U.S. Air Force veteran geospatial intelligence analyst, worked for BAE Systems Aerospace Company and Intrepid Solutions Services. He's a UAP witness. Very little is known about this guy or the incident, but what's important is what we do know about BAE and the technologies that they work on, which definitely should be a main question asked. The adaptive camouflage systems for combat vehicles, these hexagon panel systems, which turn tanks into SUVs and helicopters into drones and can blend into the background, basically invisibility cloak panels. And these are like the 15-year-old ones that are declassified. They have way more advanced shit than this now. Ones that can actually change color in real time and be optically invisibility cloaked, in addition to being, thermally invisibility cloaked. So that needs to be asked about at the hearing, especially from a BAE expert, a witness like Mr. Dylan Borland. Dylan, do you know anything about BAE adaptive systems, or what about talking plasma balls? Because these talking endless flashbangs can be often mistaken for UAP. I mean, the easiest shape to generate with one of these things, aside from a sphere or a dot, is a tic tac or a pill-shaped object. So why not? Could these things be these Pentagon talking plasma balls, where they can literally not only create a plasma ball in midair that they can move around like a UFO at light speed, or faster than light speed, because it's just a laser pointer on a surface. It's not really a physical object, so it can just do insane accelerations if you were to track it on radar as a real physical signature, which a prolonged plasma would probably create a physical signature on radar. And I have experts about this, and they said it will. So it's radar spoofing as well as visual identification spoofing. So BAE makes these ECM technologies, that's electronic countermeasures, and they can also put voice through the material too, so they can make one of these balls of light appear and then start barking commands at you or talk to you. So yeah, that's a super important technology to know about and to ask these expert witnesses and professionals from these whistleblowers apparently about this technology. They need to be asked about. BAE guys and BAE. There's too much BAE involvement in a lot of these hearings. Ryan Graves at the first one, had connections. He was working at BAE after he left the military, and he left that job after people asked him, is that a conflict of interest if you're working for BAE and they're developing these technologies which could easily be mistaken for a UAP? Is that a conflict of interest? I think that's a valid question to ask any potential witness for the government. I encourage people to call their congressman tomorrow and send them this video, and just with the list of questions. We're putting this together as just a briefing, and I hope that some people send it out to the right people, and they can learn a little bit about who these witnesses are. And George Knapp is going to be another one of the witnesses. So which I thought was super interesting, is that George Knapp is this guy who came out with the Bob Lazar story decades ago. That's like his claim to fame, was George Knapp. He had the show On the Record on KLRU, and he brought out a guy that said he knew about Area 51 stuff, and that was in 1988, a year before Bob Lazar, and that guy's name was John Lear. And John Lear is the guy that Bob Lazar met and worked for when he moved to Las Vegas. And I thought it was super interesting that John Lear is a guy that spread a lot of disinformation about a lot of different things over the years. So be interesting. I'm just interested in Knapp's evolution through this whole maze of meeting people. And was he ever recruited into programs? Because, of course, in the early 90s, remember that, George Knapp had the Russian UFO files and was chosen by the CIA to be the liaison between the USSR and the American public for declassifying and releasing all of their UFO files and documents, which is an interesting role for him to be chosen for that. Just, you're not, if you're doing real disclosure and doing real journalism and stuff, like the CIA doesn't pick you to be their journalist, and you don't get a show on TMZ called UFO Revolution if you're preaching the truth. These guys are disinformation agents. They're well produced, well supported. They're put on the biggest platforms out there to share disinformation about UFOs with the public, that it's Element 115, that there's a base called S4 south of Area 51, and this is all just fake rabbit holes to waste your time. I wasted 20 years investigating this and got way further than Jeremy Corbell ever could, and he will never debate me because I would make him look like an utter and complete fool. And it's just a shame to see him get a front row seat at these hearings and get funded and get a TV show when he's literally a disinformation agent. 100%. He has not, every single story he has come out with, from the Boca balloons that were with the lens effect, with the triangle lens, to the 29 Palms incident that was a flare drop in California. Everything he's come out with has been debunked by the internet in less than 24 hours by professionals. And he's just made an utter fool of himself. And how he gets positions like this to talk about UFOs is something to be seriously questioned. If you guys have any brain at all and understand how disinformation works, you're going to understand that the CIA has gotten ahead of every single hearing on oversight that has ever happened. And to think that this one for September 9th is going to be any different, that we're going to restore public trust by interviewing these 4 individuals that they have on the list and not ask them like legitimate questions, is like, did you guys run a whistleblower trap to capture the real whistleblowers, and then you're running a fake whistleblower operation now? Is that what this panel is? Is that what the testimony is? I don't know. I would love to interview these people myself and ask them some serious questions, because I've had a lot of fake whistleblowers come across over the years that have claimed that they have information and led people on and gotten a lot of attention, distractions caused, and infighting and side taking, and basically divide and conquer within a movement over when what they can spend billions of dollars on. Man, they can just fund all kinds of crap. And I look at the crap that's being recycled too by some of the biggest channels out there that still owe us money, for the work that we did. We did that $50,000 challenge that Jesse Michael put out with the, he put out that whole challenge. Oh wait, is this Jesse Michael's channel, or is this a different channel? I think this is a different channel, because this guy only has 11K followers, but he's got the same name. He's posting this thing about Charles Hall. Either way, it's got 809 likes and over 120 shares. But as you know, we have done numerous records requests. They were done by my friend and former admin on my forum, David Hilton. David, if you're out there, would love to get you on again sometime. David Hilton did excellent research into the Tall Whites case, and Charles Hall got his whole military record FOIA'd and just proved that he's an utter and total fraud. And people can check those records, review that research, and verify it. And here's a link to David's channel for that awesome research that was done over a decade ago by David Hilton. I mean, this video is 12 years old now, and people can go check that out and see that, this Charles Hall stuff is cool. It was a fun story, but it's not legit. It's totally not legit. So whether these whistleblowers are legit or not, we'll find out, man. But Jeffrey Nucatelli, this dude is not the guy who actually witnessed this event. He's just retelling stories from other people. And that's kind of weird that he'd be retelling what other people saw, and that he literally went and hunted down for the government, like all the people that were involved in this UFO event and witnessed this thing at Vandenberg Air Force Base. And he's now speaking for them on their behalf, even though it's not questionable whether he actually really saw anything or not. So this needs to be hashed out properly in the hearings tomorrow. I hope that congressmen are, being advised of this information. And if they're not, then we need to, Send them in. Send them in, dude. Yeah, I'll send you the link, dude. I almost want to post it right now. Yeah, let's do it. Let's do open call. Sure, why not? Listen, there's the link, and if you join, you have to have a camera, and you have to be able to tell me what you're going to talk about in the private chat beforehand. And I'd love to invite some whistleblowers on. I have to look into this more, and I have so many questions for Bob Lazar. I mean, so many questions about Bob Lazar for George Knapp. I want to know George Knapp's involvement with Robert Bigelow. Bob Bigelow is like billionaire, funded a lot of this stuff. Really interesting guy. He's only been interviewed by select people, and you know, it's like a lot of these guys is they won't ever be interviewed by a knowledgeable UFO person that really does their research. They're always like on these controlled platforms and stuff that usually interview like the same few people and keep the narrative to a controlled, limited hangout, which is typical of how they control the narrative and have this whole the Red Square incident. He interviews this guy. I watched this interview, and he, like, right in the beginning, within 5 minutes, he's talking about Bigfoot, and it's like, dude, this is the guy who's testifying at our UFO hearing. Like, where's all the information on, you know, the technologies and stuff? Because I know that from my research, there's decades and decades of here's my UFO technical summary. And you know, the UFO stuff, people get it all confused. You got Brian Keaton tweeting nonsense saying that there's no supply chain. We don't know where the technology came from. And that's totally wrong, man. It's wrong because we know Operation Paperclip in 1945, right at the end of World War II. We got all the Nazi scientists. We got anechoic tiles. These are anti-echo tiles. They figured out how to make tiles that would be, you know, absorb the echo through the wave pattern, the waveforms and stuff. And they built them and padded submarines with them, with the frequency tuned to the radar so that they would be invisible, man. This is Operation Paperclip. This is like German World War II secrets that were brought to Redstone Arsenal and, you know, brought to Ames Research and a couple other in MIT and through the, you know, the Varian brothers and a number of other people that got a hold of these technologies after World War II and went into a lot of this top secret research into, you know, saucer and parabolic wing, V-shaped wing aircraft, all kinds of different airframe shapes and different types of propulsion methods were researched. They had all kinds of balloons and balloon research. So there was a lot of stuff that went on that's still classified. They talk about this Roswell memory foil being responsible for whatever crashed at Roswell because the way the witnesses describe of how this metal behaved and the materials, and all of it's been confiscated. Talk about these glass alloys that have incredible strength and elastic limit, and these bulk materials that are, you know, quasi-crystals. S2 quasi-crystals are a huge piece of the research, apparently, and they go back to, you know, quasi-crystals were formed in the tritium after the first atomic test. In fact, they can tell from the type of and the shape and the characteristics of the quasi-crystals that are formed, they can tell the the they can tell the actual intensity and type of the atomic blasts from the quasicrystals, which is amazing stuff. And of course, they were denied by mainstream science for years, talked about by Area 51 insiders, saying that they're a key part of how the advanced craft work. We found a place called Site 4, two places called Site 4. One was at Tonopah Test Range, where the tested enemy radar facilities, electronic countermeasures, and the other one was a Site 4 at B2 in Palmdale. So these guys worked on this stuff, and we've tracked down all the scientists throughout the decades who have ever had access to this stuff. We've even got the 1940s documents with actual physical debris and evidence that were brought to Battelle Memorial Institute and then disappeared into a black hole, apparently, according to the chain of custody. So really interesting stuff. Again, that link's up there. We got one person join. I see him in the background. Just go in that private chat and let me know what's up, Mark E. Let's see who this guy is. It might be a whistleblower, someone from Battelle, hopefully. I talk about the scientists who worked on all these secret programs for the CIA out of Area 51 that are now declassified, what they're related to, the whole theory behind a lot of it. And, I have my own classified debriefing for people that are of technical background if they want to really understand what kind of research has been done in the history of it. So, in any case, I'm going to Mark, how's it going? You are in the people can hear you if you unmute yourself now. I'm just going over all the whole history of the Biefeld-Brown effect. Again, I pointed out that we had Stephen Greer make this claim many times, and I had him make it again on Danny Jones when I told Danny Jones to ask him about this. And it's the whole thing with Brown at Bonson Labs in 1956 to 59 was working on the Biefeld-Brown effect. And that's the time when, if Greer says they discovered anti-gravity and they cracked it in 54, then why would Bonson be funding it in 56, 2 years later? It doesn't make chronological sense. And anyways, Mark, what's going on, Mark? You'll have to unmute yourself so people can hear you, Mark, because your microphone's muted. I can't unmute you. You have to physically unmute your own mic. And please don't talk about Hot Dog Earth. Damn it, he's muted. They probably censored all his... It was probably the real whistleblower, dude. That was probably UFO Snowden, and they're like, oh, fuck, it's him.
Sounds like he's having a problem with his mic, getting echo.
Dude, it's the real deal. It's UFO Snowden, man. His name's not even Mark. Just wait. All right, Thomas, what is up, man? So we're talking about the real UFO history that debunks Bob and Soup. I think it one ups Bob Lazar because Bob Lazar is just this one guy who talks about Element 115, and people have no idea that like John
Dude, I
Watson.
wonder why you keep going on about Bob Lazar and NIC. Nobody else knows who he is. So they don't have any idea all the scams he's pulled. Like now I can see why you keep banging on it because nobody's listening, you know?
Well, here's the thing, yeah, is that if Joe Rogan is the top podcaster, he's the number one, right? He's the
Right.
biggest one out there, and Joe Rogan's top podcast, his most viewed of all time, is Bob Lazar.
Well, that's the thing that a lot of people don't get either. Joe Rogan is not a scientist. He's not got top billing because he's good at being a science communicator. He's just doing stuff he's interested in. So it doesn't matter. He can talk about Bigfoot. He'll get just as many people coming in there, regardless of the fact that, the lack of evidence on that, because they want to hear about that,
Yeah, yeah,
Lazar seems to feed on that, though. He feeds on places where basically the people don't care about the science. They just they want a story that they already, confirms their beliefs. You know what I mean? It's kind of
oh yeah,
annoying, but there's still no reason to go Professor Dave on anyone.
yeah, yeah. Well, I'm no, I try to be nice, but I'm also gotta call these people out when they're wrong, man. It's just.
Yeah. Well,
And
no, the reason I
you
brought
can't just let these people run their show like at these hearings in front of Congress if people care about this country
right.
and transparency and accountability, because they're gonna try to drown out these hearings with nonsense until people give up and they just get tired of it
Go back to sleep.
and go back to sleep, and that's the plan.
Take your glasses off and obey, consume, reproduce. You know.
Well, also just fund Space Force because, trust Trump that he's got all the technology there and it's all real, no matter what it is you think about it,
Or
it's
more
all.
importantly, like they've not hidden things from him before. I mean, what about those people he told them to bring them back? And they said, "Oh, we have," and then you find out later, no, they lied. They had like 3,000 troops still there, and they never even planned on moving them. Or the guy that's like, "Oh, don't worry, I'll call you and let you know if he decides to do anything stupid." Z. It's like, but this is considered normal, like literally committing treason against us by, doing what is it? He's doing basically, backdoor solicitation with another state, another country, without anyone's okay. He's just doing what he wants. That wasn't he also the one that was like came out and was wearing a dress or whatever? The
Who's that?
the military leader there. I don't remember if it was Army or if it was a Marine or what, but it was one of the the top people that answer directly to the president.
Huh.
Shoot, I've seen it over and over. I keep seeing people complaining about this, and nobody, of course, doing anything about it. About him going behind Trump's back and telling, uh, ZZ that he would let him know before they did anything. Like
Well,
it's like
I
if he
just
had done that over the Iran thing, they would have already known they were coming long before they got there, and could have just shot him out of the air.
well, yeah, for real. Thank you for that. And it's cool. I've only seen a few other UFO people talk about like 9/11 and the whole story, official story, just not making any sense at all with the passports that uh, are indestructible and survived the whole plane crash and everything. But yeah, the
You want another little piece to that, by the way?
sure.
One of the guys that was shown as being on that plane and taking it over, a friend of mine defended him against some rednecks one night at Denny's. They were going to beat the crap out of him for being, a Middle Easterner person. The guy's Jewish that defended him. and he started questioning whether he should help people in the future when he saw that that he had saved one of the people on the plane that had hijacked the plane. So if this guy can't stand up against a couple of rednecks, how is he taking over a plane? You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah, they would have rushed him, especially Flight 77. It was like the smallest dude, and they rushed the plane. They would have rushed the plane, but the whole thing was like the whole thing's crazy about that. Is you ever seen the X Files, uh, Lone Gunman?
Mm-mm. Well, I mean, I may have and just
This one is
didn't know what it
crazy. All right,
was.
yeah,
Don't
this
remember.
is it on my channel. 14 years ago, I posted this, so I'm glad they had never taken it down. They did edit it, and it used to have high definition and be like really good audio and stuff, but they really ruined the audio and the
So
portions of
I
it.
take the script mirrors reality or something.
This script came out. This literally was written and aired months before 9/11, and it's a flight from Boston.
Right.
And talk about this
Wow.
scenario D. That's this air counterterrorism disaster scenarios from this government think tank. Up
Sounds like Oil Storm. Did you see that?
so the government think tank was called the Continuity of Government Program, and it operated at
Oh,
Andrews
right.
Air Force Base in the 80s, and Donald Rumsfeld and Dick Cheney were a part of it, and
Right.
their job was literally to dream up the worst case disaster scenarios that would happen in the U.S. and plan for what would happen in that event. And apparently, they got this whole plan that, like, oh, if multiple hijacked planes got hijacked at the same time, and what if they got flown into buildings, then maybe the Pentagon could get hit, if it was enough air confusion and stuff. And a bunch of people dismissed it as ridiculous. The Pentagon could never get hit, like there's no way. um, so but they had stuff inside the Pentagon they needed to get rid of. Obviously your decade old files and all kinds of stuff that just can't, like, I don't know. I think that a lot went on in the Pentagon, and on that day, with the $2.3 trillion that went missing like the day before 9/11. I think a lot of those trillions went to pay for a lot of these advanced technologies and programs and stuff. And we know that a couple companies made a fortune, off of the aftermath of 9/11, because, of course, they needed the airport scanners at all the airports to make sure no one else could bring the box cutters on the planes. So, of course, SAIC got $100 million contracts for body scanners at all the airports for TSA. And, you know, the Department of Justice head who investigated 9/11 was Michael Chertoff, who also had a company that benefited off of the mandate for these airport scanners at all the airports. So a lot of these companies like SAIC made a ton of money off of 9/11, and also got a lot of funding for a lot of the other secret research that they do on all kinds of other stuff. Um, it was a massive opportunity for a bunch of key people these key positions that we're now just finding out about years later, that had the technology to do all the stuff that was in this video. Like, literally, they found out they're hijacking the planes with by uploading code to the system autopilot in the plane. So they upload code to the autopilot, and they're able to hack the uninterruptible autopilot so that it flies the planes by remote control. And they do that in the video, and people think that that's what happened to the planes in real time, on 9/11 as well, because it's just,
Wow.
side. I mean, it's in this video by the X Files that aired months before 9/11, which is just wild.
Well, I was gonna say, did you see Oil Storm? Have you seen the issue with the mirroring of what they put out like a month before Katrina came in and did what it did?
Oh, I think I've heard about this. I had a guy I talked to about a lot of this BP stuff back then, and he told me a lot of that stuff.
Well,
Man,
yeah, they had to be making that movie, even though it was like a mockumentary. That at least like probably a year ahead of time because of the way editing and everything goes. But they still like it was so eerily similar until you get about the middle of the movie where basically there's like an oil and a chemical tanker trying to get through the Mississippi to get to like or what I think it's the Mississippi, basically one of the major waterways to get further inland to get to one of the oil refineries that they crash, and that blocks that pathway, shutting down that last refinery because it's not able to get any more oil, and that's where everything diverted between that and like 3 months later after Katrina's hit and the things that mirrored everything up until that oil tanker. But I mean, it's just like half of the movie is literally step for step. Even the price of the gas and diesel and whatnot skyrocketing because of it, and all the people who are affected, and people moving back home because gas is skyrocketing so high that nobody can even afford for any of the other stuff that fuel affects.
oh
And
man,
then
it's
a month
crazy
after
because
it comes out, Katrina hit. Bam! Like literally, it was the next month.
well, they had talked about this in Mike Rupert's book. He predicted all this with crossing the Rubicon, and talked about all this. The He said that they needed the oil dollars for the petrodollar recycling system that the world uh, finances depend on, to keep all this fraudulent banking structure afloat. They needed the drugs from the Golden Triangle, and the Taliban had started slashing and burning all the opium fields in 2000. So like the the markets just tanked, and then right in 2000 they were predicting all this peak oil stuff with you know that peak oil was going to peak out in like 2008, and unfortunately we found a lot more big reserves, and it's lasted a lot longer than we thought. But those are going to run out eventually, according to conventional oil theory. um, and what's going to happen when, yeah, gas skyrockets to $7 or $8 a gallon, it would be catastrophic. And he predicted a lot of this stuff, and talked about it in this book, Crossing the Rubicon, which he wrote back then, um, and talked a lot about how the CIA and the oil energy giants viewed this whole process and why they needed to get into Iraq and get control of those oil resources. And of course, some of the guys involved with the Iraq War occupation governor was a guy who was formerly on the chair of a Harvard board on counterterrorism. Is a counterterrorism expert, and an expert in terrorism, who went to go work for Marshall McLennan in the World Trade Center just a few years before 9/11, and
Well, I
misworked.
wonder if a lot of this too isn't to distract people from the fact that we could probably be making oil at any point because with the thermal uh,
Making energy,
depolymerization, like
yeah, or making energy from, yeah, we could make a repolymerization and just create
well,
hydrocarbon
this is the
bonds. And
thing. Have you looked into the diesel tree? It's the nickname of it. It's an evergreen, but it's a tropical evergreen tree. You can literally drain the sap as long as you clean all the grit out of it. The bark and whatever else might be in it. So it's just the sap. You can put it straight into a diesel engine and run it all day long. The only thing that regular diesel that you buy at the pump has over on it is the longer shelf life because it's got some inorganic component to it that basically makes it harder for organisms to attack it the way the sap from the tree can be attacked. Because it's evergreen, if you hybridize that so that you with evergreens that are used to colder climate, you could probably be getting that type of sap from those trees all across northern North
huh.
America. you know? And that's just one thing. I mean, never mind being able to crack things down to the smallest molecule and then use
I think
zeolite filters to make them into whatever you want. Doesn't matter. You
cold
know how
fusion.
zeolites are made, right?
I'm pretty sure that cold fusion is how UFOs power themselves. They go into water to refuel. Numerous cases have been documented of them going into water and refueling. And
You
the
think they use
NASA,
some sort of filtration to get the heavy water
the
with
whole
the
Navy and NASA, like,
deuterium in it?
have, I'm glad that they're doing research into some of this stuff still, because there's good people out there doing good research into all this. And Larry Forsley is one of those guys. Definitely
I'll say,
check out
what's the new name for cold fusion? They've had to change
LENR,
names several. Yeah, yeah. I was gonna say
lattice
they keep
confinement.
changing the name, I guess, to try to refine it so that it more accurately describes what they think is the path forward, as opposed to just a blanket term of cold fusion.
Lattice
So,
confinement fusion. Or as
hmm,
Buzz Lightyear called it, crystallic fusion.
hmm.
Remember,
Is
he
that
says,
in the Toy Story movies or something?
in the first Toy Story movie, in the
Wow.
scene where he first encounters Woody, he's like, "Local law enforcement, glad you showed up. Have you have you primitives figured out crystallic fusion, or do you still use fossil fuels?" That's what he says.
Wow.
It's in the movie.
Well, I mean, we're not going to be able to get away from the quote unquote fossil fuel, which technically fossil means in the ground. It doesn't mean that it's like a remnant of some organic structure. It just has to be found in the ground as a structure.
What?
So
It's
I
not
guess
dinosaur bones.
so. Well, that's the latest thing is that they're saying they believe it's actually the algae that collects at the bottom of the ocean and gets subducted into the crust
Oh,
from two plates rolling over each other, and it pulls it under. So it means there's more always being generated. You just have to wait for it to bubble back up afterwards after it's been percolated. What I was going to say is the other thing that I'm thinking is probably going on is you probably have a system where if you throw a bunch of, like, say, leaves and a little tiny bit of water, you pack it into a barrel, seal it up, and you introduce microbes that are anaerobic, so they don't need oxygen to survive. They use other methods for survival in a chain of events where you go from one microbe to the next. By the time you're done within like 6 months, you can probably turn that barrel full of leaves into a 55-gallon drum of just pure uh, oil. You know, we're not talking like the crude most people are used to seeing where it's brownish black or something like that because of contamination and salts and whatnot. No, it'll be that nice honey yellow color because it's just hydrocarbons, nothing else. No arsenic, no lead, no, whatever else it basically manages to dissolve the salts of into it while it's working its way through the crust and coming back up to the surface. So their drilling expertise is probably going to be more invested in, look, we need to go get the oil so we can go through it to get the rare earth minerals that it's managed to absorb into it and dissolve into it so we don't run out because we're relying on someone else to go around with earth movers and then sift through all of that to get the tiny little bit of rare earth minerals there are in that.
yeah.
I mean, there's vanadium mines, old vanadium mines in Arkansas. And I thought that was, unique or something, but it turns out that it's because it was between 2.5% and 3% of what they dug up was vanadium.
All right. Well,
Anywhere else, you're getting at least
this is
one
not
to
going to
two
get
percent.
brought up at the hearing tomorrow.
So,
But yeah, it's a cool conversation. We're gonna have to just continue that one at a later time, Tom. I just want to wrap this up because this is like I want this to be
okay.
fast and short and sweet with just a couple key questions. Another thing I have a question for George Knapp is his whole connection with this TTSA group. What was he did he invest in that? Was he get return on investment? He helped promote it obviously through his media networks and contacts. So, what was the whole connection there? And was TTSA a techno scam? Did they take money with promises of release of technology that they never followed through on? And what is the whole what is the whole relationship there with George Knapp and that, and what is George Knapp doing in all of this, and is he, and who's George Knapp's wife? Another thing that's interesting is his wife apparently has connections to Valkyrie Industries, which is like a defense, securities contractor. And yeah, you can look this up. Ask AI what who George Knapp's wife is, and if she has any would pose any conflict of interest to his ability to give accurate and honest testimony at a
I've
hearing
got a
on
question
this.
for you. Has anyone ever looked at the stream of patents to look for gaps in the numbers and then ask about those, where those patents are?
Yeah, and what's up with Battelle being accused, Battelle and SAIC being accused of managing all of but of all of the UFO stuff, and then Battelle is Moultrie hid his connections to Battelle when he created Arrow, and Arrow is supposed to be the whole public response. It's like Project Blue Book 2.0. And literally, we have Battelle and SAIC doing a lot of the science research into UFOs behind the scenes. And Battelle manages all of our national labs, dude. They got to have patent holding companies at each one of our national labs. So if anything gets invented that needs to be classified, that's how it doesn't even make its way into those numbers or the patent book. So I don't even know if that's a good way to look. I think the best way to look is at the labs themselves and an
Right.
oversight panel that really looks into Battelle and says, wait, the whole key thing about this UFO business and all this secret networks of the people need to understand how it works, like how do or national labs function where all our science goes on, and how do these patents get scooped up and censored, and certain technologies get shelved or hidden. That is the key part of all this. And you know I hope I hope people would just call their congressman tomorrow. I know that they're going to probably be, tomorrow's too late. I meant to do this morning and have everyone be pumped to go call their congressman today. I called my congressman this morning when I couldn't do the stream. I was driving to work. I called my congressman and I told him all this stuff. So I don't know. We need to hold out for the next hearing, I think, and I hope that the right questions get asked at this hearing, and people share those
How about
around.
the question of why do we have to keep asking questions for you to answer specific things? Just put everything out there. Give us the fire hose.
Yeah, for real.
Unleash it all. And literally bombard them with, look, you say we're the greatest nation in the world. We're not that great if we have to have secrets. If we're really
Yeah,
that great, letting people know all the secrets we have would actually scare people into submission. So what's the truth? What's really going on? Why are you guys hiding so much? I think 99% of what's being hidden is just corruption. And
yeah,
anytime something important gets tied to something corrupt, they got to hide the whole thing to keep the corruption from being found.
yeah. Well, a lot of this is connected to a lot of the corrupt people and stuff that were involved with a lot of corrupt things. So yeah, I get it, man. It's crazy that they want these technologies for themselves, and they also want to make people think they have a lot. Our enemies to think we have stuff that we don't have, while hiding the stuff that we do have.
Right.
So it's a maze of stuff to investigate and try to figure out. But hey, we're doing our best, and we'll see what we can do. But hey,
What what is
let's.
Jeremiah and Mark getting done, by the way? I haven't seen anything from them in a while.
I've been asking. I just asked Mark to do an update with me soon. We'll see what he says. And I got a bunch of, just everyone's nose to the grindstone, trying to work on a lot of
Right.
this stuff and do as much as we can.
Almost makes me think that maybe the groups need to basically go private themselves, go quiet, and not share what they're producing. Then, because I'm sure with some of the mines we've got working on stuff, we'll be able to outperform everything that they've got going. The only thing that holds us back is the funding. So you have to do more legwork to produce the things you need the funding for. And then if they want us to share, well, you got to share too.
Hey, I'm gonna end this here just because I have to go to bed. But
You sound
like,
like you're falling asleep.
let's um let's reconvene for the hearing tomorrow, and we'll try to live stream it and talk about some of these other things and stuff. I have to talk to uh
I would say, yeah, maybe after the hearing's over, depending on what the hearing contains. Might take a while to get through everything. Can hope, right?
yeah, for real. And I want to keep this under an hour because I want to keep the scientists, focused on real stuff, real questions, real science
Yep.
and stuff. And this is just a stream for the hearing tomorrow, and I don't want to get too deep in the weeds. It's just really people. Hopefully, these questions can get asked tomorrow, or at least some of this stuff. But I'm not counting on too much of anything. But yeah, we'll convene. We'll maybe set up another late night stream and dive into patents and stuff. But have a good night, guys, and we'll see you tomorrow
Later.
morning.
All right.